This video is all you need to get started with animation in Procreate. I will guide you through all the steps to create your first animation in Procreate. But of course you can also follow this tutorial if you have made animations before. For this tutorial, all you need is a canvas of 2300 pixels by 3000 pixels. Now, if you don't know how to change the size of your canvas, then I would recommend watching my video about getting started with Procreate. That way you will know all the basics before we jump into this tutorial. I have also added a link in the description to grab our new flow logo, which we will use for this logo animation. But of course you can also use another logo or an illustration for this super easy animation. Now the first thing we are going to do is change our background color because white, it just looks boring. Let's go to the layer menu, that's these two little squares, and tap background color. I will pick this yellow. I will drop the hexadecimal code in the description. You can drop the hexadecimal code under value over here. This is the code for our yellow. You can just type it in here and press enter, and then you'll have the same yellow in case you want to use it. Now let's drop in our logo. We need to go to the wrench, then to add, and then to insert a photo. Then I'll grab the logo over here. And let's make it a little bit bigger. Let's go for something like this and place it in the center. Now, if you're not seeing these, this vertical and this horizontal line, then you'll have to turn on snapping over here. So if you're seeing the vertical and the horizontal line, then you'll know that the logo is in the exact center of the canvas. And then you can just tap the little arrow over here. Now to get started with animation in Procreate, we need to go to the wrench again, then to canvas, and then you can turn on animation assist over here. Then you'll see this little bar pop up here at the bottom. And right now our animation has just one frame, and each layer or each layer group in your layers menu will be a frame in your animation. Now let's just get started creating layers before we get into the other settings. Just know that the amount of layers or the amount of frames depends on your device. So it could be that you will be able to create less layers or less frames than I will be able to. In that case, you can go to the wrench and then to canvas and then to crop and resize. And here at settings, be sure to turn on resample canvas, and then you can make the canvas a little bit smaller. That way your device will be able to handle more layers, more frames, and you will be able to continue with the tutorial. And then just tap done. Now to create our first frame, we are going to duplicate this layer. Slide to the left and then tap duplicate. And we will turn down the opacity of this top layer. So tap the N, then drag it down to, let's say, 56%, and then go to the bottom layer. This top layer will just be a reference, so we'll know how our full logo will look like, so we can keep an eye on the full logo while we work on the previous layers or the previous frames. Next, we are going to tap that bottom layer and turn on mask. Now we have a layer mask attached to our logo, and right now it's white. That means that we can see everything that's on layer 1. But as soon as you start painting on it with black, it'll block everything. Of course, if you have been watching my other tutorials, then you might already know this, but I'll just repeat it because even if this is your first time in Procreate, I want you to be able to follow this. Now let's go and pick pure black. Let's go to disk here at the bottom and then double tap here at the bottom to get pure black. And now while you have the layer mask selected, drag in the color onto your screen, and now you'll see that everything is blocked on the layer. You can only see the top layer now, which has that low opacity. Let's go to the bottom again, and it's looking slightly green. That's because of our settings over here. If you go to the settings of your animation, you can see here at the bottom onion skin colors. And right now it's set to red and green. That means that the previous frame will look red, and the next frame will look green, and the next frame is our full logo. So it's working correctly. So these onion skin frames, they allow you to see the previous and next frames, so it's easier to create your animation. Now let's continue. Let's work on the layer mask, and let's work on it with white. So we are going to double tap here to select pure white. And now for our brush, let's go and grab the monoline brush, which you can find under calligraphy. Now, if you tend to create wobbly lines, or if you're still just getting used to working on an iPad, you can tap the monoline brush, then go to stabilization, and you can play around with the streamline and with the amount of stabilization. Because that way, even if you have like a wobbly hand, it'll smooth out your line. Right now I have it set to 61% and 47% over here, but you can really play around with it till you find the amount of stabilization that you need. Then just tap done. And now let's create our first frame. We are going to add just a little bit of logo here at the bottom. Just a tiny bit, color it in. And 2 little droplets that go up here. I have the opacity of this brush set to 100% and the size is at 30%. Now you're going to create the next frame. You can just drag to the left on this layer and then tap duplicate. It'll also duplicate the layer mask. So now let's work on that layer mask. And let's make it a little bit bigger here. Let's make it a bit of a wavy line. And you don't have to color it in entirely. As long as your shape is closed, you can just drag in the white to fill that area. And now let's add the droplets here as well. I'm going to make the brush a little bit smaller, 15%. And let's make these droplets a little bit higher. So over here. And they're going in this direction. And then let's duplicate this layer. So slide to the left, tap duplicate, then select the layer mask. And now let's make this wobbly line a little bit higher. Close the shape behind it so you can drag in the white to fill that shape. If there's a gap, then well, that layer mask will get filled with white entirely. So even if you can't see the shape, it's there. So make sure that it's closed before you drag in the color. Then 2 more little droplets. And then let's go to the next frame. Let's drag to the left, tap duplicate, and then select the layer mask. Now we are going to work our way up, make a wobbly line again, close it behind the circle, and drag in the white. Then on to the next one. So go to the layer menu first, drag to the left to duplicate the layer, and then make sure to select the layer mask. Wobbly line. You don't have to create the same exact wobbly line like you did before. Try to vary it a little bit. And slowly but surely, we are going to fill the entire logo. So again, duplicate the layer, select the layer mask, and fill that area. Make sure you close the shape, drag in the white, and then again, go to the layer menu, duplicate the layer, select the layer mask, and let's make another wobbly line. So wobble your way from left to right, close the shape, drag in the color, and we have another frame. Now let's duplicate it again, go to the layer mask, and we are slowly filling our logo here. Make sure to close the shape, drag in the color, and again, let's duplicate it. Tap the layer mask. And it's slowly filling up. We're almost there. Drag in the color. Duplicate it again. Go to the layer mask. Let's do another one. It's almost completely full. Drag in the color, and now our next frame will be the entire logo. So we can actually just use this one over here. Let's turn up the opacity. So now that we have all these frames, you can tap play to see your animation. It's really fast right now. But if you go to settings, you can turn down the frames per second. We are going to set it to 6 frames per second. Now officially for like real animation videos, 24 frames per second is like the standard. But we are just creating a little GIF type of thing. We're just playing around with the animation settings. So no worries, we are just going to go for 6 frames per second. And you can tap pause to pause your little animation. Now right now it's just the logo filling up, but we want to add some extra. First I want to add some frames to the beginning. I want to add a droplet that's falling into the logo and then filling it up. So let's add new layers to the bottom. Let's first select layer 1, then tap the plus for a new layer and then drag it underneath our first layer. Now our droplet is going to start here at the top. Now first let's go and grab the color that we need. You can actually just go to this top layer, tap and hold your finger on the screen to select the color. Now we have that greenish color. Then go back to layer 22. And while you have that color, we are going to start with the droplet. It's going to come from the top. So let's just create a droplet over here. Then you can drag in the color to fill it. And then create a new layer on top. So you can just tap the plus for a new layer. And now you'll see that drop that we have just created. It's red, it's our previous frame, and these are our next frames. So now let's make a droplet that's a little bit lower and drag in the color to fill it. Then create another layer. So go to the layer menu, tap the plus. And now let's create another droplet. It's a little bit lower. There's a bit more distance between these. Then another layer, tap the plus again. Create another droplet. Now we do want to be able to see that little puddle, our first little puddle. So we'll have to be able to see less onion skin frames. We are seeing quite a lot right now. So you need to go to settings. And right here you can adjust the amount of onion skin frames. If you turn it to the left, you can see that you are decreasing the amount of frames. So right now here we can only see 1 onion skin frame. So that's the previous frame and the next frame. Let's set it to 1. You can also adjust the opacity to make it lighter, more transparent. I think 50% is just fine. And now let's continue. Let's make another layer on top by tapping the plus. We're going to create another droplet. Drag in the color to fill it. And now let's check our animation. I feel like that last drop, it should be a little bit lower. Let's go to the last drop, that's layer 26. Let's then go to the arrow tool and let's move it down a little bit so that it's close to the puddle. And now let's play again. I think that's looking better. Now I want to add something at the end of the animation. Some little droplets that are popping out at the top. So let's go to the top and then let's duplicate these layers a couple of times. I want to have 3 layers with droplets. So let's duplicate it. Now we have 3 layers with droplets, and then I want a layer with just a logo. So let's duplicate it one more time and then go to this first layer where we want the droplets. And then let's add just little droplets here that are popping out at the top. Then go to the next frame and then make them move upward a little bit and to the outside. And let's also add a little one over here. Then the next one. Now we want the droplets to be a little bit smaller. And a little bit further away, and this will be just a little dot. Now let's check the animation again. Now we have added a little extra at the end, but we want the logo to be visible at the end for a longer time. So all you have to do is duplicate the top logo a couple of times, let's say 3 times. And now when you watch the animation, it'll be still at the end for just a few. And that's how you can create a super simple logo animation. Now, if you want to do more logo animation, I actually have another logo animation tutorial at Patreon where we use the same logo, but where we create a splash effect. But of course, at Patreon, you can also find loads of other Procreate tutorials and lots of brushes and a really great community. Now, last but not least, you can export your animation, of course. You can go to the wrench and then go to share. And here you can share your animation as a GIF, whatever, a PNG, MP4 or an HEVC. I'd probably either go for an animated GIF or an MP4. If you tap it, you can see your animation at work. You can still adjust the frames per second and you can make it web ready so it's pretty small and more like pixelated. If you go for max resolution, it'll be a bit bigger. And then you can just tap export and export it to wherever you like. For instance, you can airdrop it to your phone, you can put it on Google Drive, send it through email, or save it on your device. So go ahead and share your work. Just don't forget to tag me in it so I will be able to find your work. Because that way your result might end up in one of my videos, like these tutorial results from previous You Can Draw This video tutorials, or these awesome results from my friends at Patreon. I hope you had fun. If you did, then don't forget to hit that thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. These are super easy ways to support this channel and make sure that I'll keep creating these tutorials. I would like to thank you for watching, and I will see you next time for the next tutorial.